My name is Scott Talbot, and I'm the Executive Director of the Dallas Seminary Foundation. And I'm here today with Mark Schupbach, who has graciously taken time out of his schedule to come and talk with us a little bit about his story. He and his wife, Marty, have been friends and supporters of Dallas Theological Seminary for quite some time. We're very happy to have him here today. What we want to talk about today is the alignment of two concepts, and that is the passion for investing in God's work, aligned with wise stewardship that helps us to do that in a way that is efficient and takes our giving dollars and stretches them further. And so today we're going to talk about that, and specifically about Mark's experience in his life and how that all comes together. So, Mark, thank you for being here today.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Let's start by just getting a little bit of your background. Tell us about yourself, your family, your career history.
Thank you, Scott. It's my pleasure to be with you here today. As you mentioned, Marty and I have been fans and donors of Dallas Seminary for, 25 or 30 years, something like that. And it's been a privilege to be a little bit of the DTS story. As far as my background, born in the middle of the country, Kansas, lived in Colorado, went to school in Kansas, and then wound up down here in Texas. Got married halfway through college. We have 3 daughters, 6 grandchildren. They all live here in Texas, and so that's nice. Yes. The career side of it came right out of college and worked for New York Life for a couple of years in sales, and then went into management, moved up the ladder with them, hired away by Pacific Life to become an agency manager for them in Wichita, and then to Kansas City, and then down here to Dallas in '85. Concurrent with that, after a couple of years, I decided the managing other people wasn't fun, and so I went out on my own and began a planning practice back then, which was kind of a new thing, made it kind of fun and exciting. Along the way, after some years, became acquainted with a lot of the charitable planning tools and techniques that could be used to help clients, and became really interested in that. So over that period of time, I was able to actually see the tools in action, whether it was a well-done estate plan, and we, charitable remainder trust, lead trust, insurance trust, all sorts of things like that, and helping people make the most of the money that God had given them over so many years. So that's kind of the background, how I became familiar with those kind of things. Is that kind of what you wanted?
That's very helpful. So you built up your business, and you enjoyed a long and successful career, and you got to the point in your life where you started thinking about retirement. And as you thought about retirement, there must have been a lot of thoughts and feelings going on inside of you, and big decisions that you would have to make. Tell me what that was like.
Thanks for calling it a successful business. It sure didn't start that way. It was starting at zero, and lots of fits and starts. The banking crisis came in the midst of all that, a number of different things that impacted it. However, God was so kind. I remember one time, I've been in business, 7 or 8 years, and still it was a cash flow business. Can we pay the bills, etc.? And I sat in my office, Rambler Road, across from a Presbyterian hospital late one night, realizing I didn't have enough cash. I'd borrowed all I could borrow, and I was just hoping that I didn't know what to do. Who was I going to have to lay off? And all of a sudden, it prompted me that I'm not doing the right thing here. I had a blue leather chair adjacent to my desk in my office. I went over and got on my knees and just prayed into that chair. I said, God, if you're trying to tell me this is something I'm not supposed to be doing, I'm slow to get it. But if that's the case, help me graciously get out of it and move on to what you want me to do. Or if it is what you want me to do, please give me the encouragement to continue. Mm-hmm. And went home, and for the first time in a long time, had a good night's sleep. And the next morning, I was sitting there trying to figure out what to do, and here comes the mail. I missed part of the story. I was $6,000 short that I needed to make payroll. Mm-hmm. And here's the mail, and all of a sudden, there's a quality bonus check from some insurance company that I'd never seen before for $6,300. And I found myself in a really? What does this mean? Are you trying to help me get out or continue on? And so I took that kind of approach, like day to day, where are we going to go? And what happened shortly after that was truly amazing. I was referred to a Fortune 100 CEO here in town because I'd done some work for some of his friends. And he called me and said, I've heard about you. I'd like to learn about your services. So he was supposed to come in one morning to meet. I was there. All of a sudden, this guy's walking down the hall. Mark. Oh, are you Mr. So-and-so? No, just stay at your desk. Let's just visit here. So the gentleman heard what we did. He says, I think we're going to do this. How much is your fee? And I told him, back then it was $5,000. And I said, like, $5,000? Would you think that'd be worth it? And he said, that sounds reasonable. And that began a string of like 6 months in a row. Senior executives with major firms, mostly EDS, here in town, that walked in my door to be clients. And I took that as a pretty strong sign I was supposed to continue. And everything turned around. It was unbelievable. You'll hear me say frequently, you cannot outgive God. You think you're being generous, and he says, that was a pretty good start. Why don't you give some more? So here's some more that you can give away. And it's been terrific. So I throw that in there to answer your question. When it came time, because a lot had happened in the planning industry, it had become very robust, and there were a lot of things going on. And technology was a much bigger piece, and investment acumen. So I knew the little 15-person firm that I had at the time, we were in the top 100 with our national broker-dealer. So we were doing well. It was a successful business, as you said. But we needed to grow more. And we need to spend $1 million on technology. I don't know if I want to do that, and maybe have better investment acumen and better planning, this and that. And so I started saying, that's like the next wave of this business. And I wasn't sure that I wanted to be a part of the next wave. I had 3 men that worked with me who'd become shareholders, and so the plan was that they were going to buy me out. And I was at the point then where I thought, let's talk about that. And unfortunately, the firm had become a value that they couldn't afford. So I started accepting invitations from some national firms that were interested in buying the practice. I went down the aisle with 2 of them, almost all the way to the altar, when both of the things, they didn't do what they said they were going to do. We're going to promise you the sun, the moon, and the stars, and you find out it's only pictures of the sun, the moon, and the stars that they were actually going to deliver. And so, whoa. And then I got contacted by a gentleman from Indiana who'd heard me speak at a company talk over in Monaco a few years before. And he said, I really like what you do and how you do it. I think we should work together. Well, I don't know. And I'd gotten in 20 years to a pretty good level, and he got to the same level in 10. He was a very bright young guy. And I thought, well, I'll listen to what he has to say. And finally, he made a pretty compelling case for doing it, but I was still cautious. And he said, well, why don't you just hire us on a monthly basis for a year to let us prove that we can do what we say we can do? That made sense. So that's what we did. And here's the tricky part, though. I'm a hands-on guy, built the thing from scratch. And he says, for the next year, you kind of got to be invisible, because we need to come in and change a lot of things that you're doing so it'll be more productive. That was hard. That was really hard. But after about 6 months, I thought, oh, this is the right thing. So 2018, we merged with him and another company from Minnesota and started a new firm. And these guys put together a great business transition plan. Because I told them, I said, okay, first, this has got to be very good for my clients. The things that we need better technology, better investment acumen, a real HR division, if you will, and those things to make it a more viable business. But it's got to be better for the clients, then it's got to be better for the staff. And if it's good for me, that would be great too. And so they put this, here you get some cash up front, plus there's a tranche, 3 years, there's going to be some more cash, and then 3 years after that, plus you retain an owner, or you get ownership in the new company. Well, that made a lot of sense. And the dividends that were going to come off of the new company as they were going to grow and merge, et cetera. So we executed that, And one of the key elements in this thing was a donor-advised fund. I'd used them before for other folks, and I thought, I'm going to get a good check with the big capital gains on it. If I could minimize that, wouldn't that be nice? Well, as you know, the donor. So I donated 25% of that initial big check and put it in a donor-advised fund. One of the best moves I've ever done. Mm-hmm. I have loved the donor-advised fund. Mm-hmm. It keeps all of my records, what I gave, when I gave, why I gave, all that kind of stuff. It's right there on the computer. I can access it anytime I want. It grows the assets that are still in there that haven't been given away yet. And anybody that is even considering their options, I would sure consider that one. And going forward, the money that would have gone for taxes, most of that has gone into charitable gifts. It's been just great.
Yep. Good.
So otherwise, I don't have any ideas.
No, that is great. When it came time to sell your business, even in that initial, the initial stage of things, you probably discovered or were aware in advance that there is a huge liability about to take place here. In particular, a tax liability. Mm-hmm. So talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, ran the numbers real quickly on the initial payment, on the ongoing payments and the stream and all that kind of stuff, what it would mean. It looks good, but there's that big pimple on it. How could we minimize that? And that's where the donor advised fund was a key option that we looked at, as well as the spreading out the payments over some years. That was going to help too. Mm-hmm. And the National Christian Foundation, I say that right? Yeah. Mm-hmm. There's who we have it with. They were very helpful also.
Great. Yeah. So there is a unique strategy for business owners to address the capital gains tax at the time they sell a business. As you discovered, the capital gains tax is the big tax you get hit with when it comes time to sell an asset like a business. It's not just stocks or real estate that are subject to those taxes. It's also a business that you built from close to nothing. So exactly. Most or all of the proceeds that you get from the sale of the business end up being capital gains income and subject to capital gains taxes. And at some point, somebody presented you with an idea of how to address that in a tax-efficient way so that you could take a liability and turn it into an opportunity.
The difficult part on that was going from a C Corp through an LLC to get it legally in correct form that we could gift the shares that I had prior to the actual sale. Mm-hmm. That probably took the most time and the most figuring out how to do that, but that's where NCF and local lawyers came into play to help that work. But it's exactly what you said, yeah. Reduced the tax considerably that I would have paid, and I didn't mind writing the check because a much bigger check went into the donor advised fund that was going to be good. And the beauty of the donor advised fund is, someone will call and we need this. Yeah, we'll do that. Tink, 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 give this much money to those people at this address. Done.
Yep. The beauty of this arrangement is that this is a concept that most business owners are not aware of. That when you come to a liquidation event with your business, those of us who are charitably inclined, who give not just out of obligation, but it's part of our lifestyle. We see it not as a cost, but an investment. It's one of the best points in time at which there's a huge opportunity for charitable giving. Two things take place. One is this business, which all this time has equity building up in it, is now going to become liquid. It gives us as a family the opportunity to give in ways that we've never given before. We might have plans to travel. We might have plans to help family members. We can do this with it and that with it. If we want to invest in ministry, there's a huge opportunity there, whether it's at one time or through a donor advised fund that lets us spread that out. And if you give an asset before it's sold, then you avoid the capital gains tax in the process. So we work very closely with the National Christian Foundation because they have been the front runners in this area of facilitating gifts like this. Most planners, most people in the field of charitable plan giving, most attorneys and CPAs have no clue that you can do this because they get hung up on the issue of what we call UBIT, unrelated business income tax, which simply means that when you're donating shares of your business to the charitable organization, there's a pass-through of the tax liability in most cases, and so there wouldn't be any advantage there. But the National Christian Foundation has developed ways and the logistics for reducing those taxes down to maybe not zero, but to a very small amount. So there is a tax advantage to giving in advance. And so at some point, somebody introduced you to that idea and suggested there will be some planning. There will be, shall we say, a bit of complication rather than just outright sale. There's some things that we'll need to set up to make this happen, but does this sound appealing to you?
Yeah, well, actually, because I'd become acquainted with the tools and applying them for other people, it wasn't much of a sale for me. I knew what was going to be involved, but yeah, you make a good point. There's some extra steps you got to go through, but they're definitely worth it. Mm-hmm. I used to ask the successful clients that I was helping get ready for their retirement transition if they'd ask themselves the why question. And they go, which why question? I'd say, why did God let me be this successful? That I even think about these things now. Why do I have these interests? Why do I like these ministries? I guess there's a huge opportunity for me to do something good here that I never really thought I would do. I mean, how many people come out of college and say, I want to start a business or I want to do that, and someday when I have a good amount of money, I can't wait to give it away. But I don't think I've met any that have that thought. But I think a lot of them find out that someday that, oh my gosh, I know I worked hard, but I know this is God's grace that put me where I am and is giving me these options. So I need to be a good steward, as you said, and make good decisions concerning all of these different options that I have.
Yeah.
Great opportunity.
The book of Deuteronomy says, I think it's chapter 8, you may say to yourself, my power and the strength of my hands have produced this wealth for me. But remember the Lord your God, for it is he who gives you the ability to produce wealth. Everything that we have, including our ability to build a business and to generate income, is a gift from God. And stewardship simply acknowledges the God who made us, the God who gave us those gifts, the God who places his resources in our hands, and the God with whom we get to engage when we join him in what he is doing. And for a lot of people that I've talked to, and we get to meet a lot of those great people here at DTS because we've got a lot of friends and supporters here, they share the joy of giving, and it's one of the most rewarding ways that they can use the funds that God has entrusted to them by actively engaging in what God is about, whether it's here at DTS or other organizations that God has laid on their hearts.
Yeah, well said. Yeah. Totally agree.
Yeah. It is an honor, it is a privilege to be stewards of what God has entrusted to us, and whatever we have, whether it's great or small, to be able to use that in a way that honors the owner and in a way that lets us get on the playing field with God. Go ahead.
I was going to say, my case is small compared to many that I've seen and been a part of, and it has been remarkable to see. I think of one family we worked with many years ago, and they had been charitably minded all along. Had been the whole family for generations had been successful, and now was working down to the next generation again. The two of the three kids really weren't that charitably inclined, And so it was a struggle to help them see the benefit, many benefits that were going to come from this, even for them. And I remember having like the big reveal of finally all the pieces of the plan had come together. And I'll just keep this real simple. Suppose, I'll make up some numbers here. Let's say they were worth $50 million. Their current estate plan was when matriarch dies, she's the survivor, then the 3 kids, the government gets a third, the kids get a third, and charities get a third. That was it. That was all the complexity there was to all of the fancy planning they had done. And they're going like, okay, and so I said, well, it doesn't have to be that way. If you did this, then use 4 or 5 of these different tools, the government's going to get like next to nothing. Nothing. They didn't believe that, so we had to show that to them. And then where's the rest of it going to go? Well, before, let's just suppose the third would have been, what, 16 million, the 3 kids were going to split. And I said, well, then the government's going to get nothing. The charities are going to get 25 million, and the kids are, going to get 15 million. And one guy says, well, that's not so good. I said, 15 million each. And he goes, huh? Well, show me that. So I showed it to him, how a series of staggered CLTs over time, then paid out in 6 years and 12 years and 18 years, and it was 15 million each. And you were going to split 16 million before. And it was funny. He looks at his mother and he says, I guess it sounds okay. And she looks at him like, you selfish little so-and-so, of course it looks okay. And people are generally just stunned when they see applying these tools and what it can do in so many ways, even benefiting themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's fun stuff.
That's great.
You have a fun job.
I do, and it's one of the reasons I love charitable plan giving, because it's, I love helping people solve problems, maybe even problems they didn't realize they had. And I still enjoy seeing people respond when we share with them an idea they had no idea they could do, they could implement.
They look at you and go, is this legal?
Yeah.
Yes, it's legal. Come on.
And a lot of times the attorneys don't know, the CPAs don't know. It's a specialized field, and it's not their area of expertise. But what it boils down to is this. Those with wealth, in particular, will make a charitable gift when they die. Ultimately, the question is, who are the charities going to be? And if you don't pick, the default charity is the IRS.
Yeah, ugly.
Yes, well, some people don't mind that. Most people would rather be more strategic.
Back to this situation I just cited, another aspect of that, we had them quadrupling what they'd been doing on an annual basis to these charities they were working with. And they went away and came back and they said, we're having real trouble with this. And I said, uh-oh, what's the problem? We can't think of enough charities. Because some of them they'd been like, here's one they were giving $100,000 to that was going to go to $400,000. But there was another one they were giving 10 to, but they didn't really want to give them 40. They don't think they needed it. So I said, I have a list. If you like some to consider. No, well, maybe, but that was the hardest thing, was finding people they thought would be worthy recipients.
That's a fun problem to have.
Yeah, it's a real fun problem.
Because there's so many opportunities out there.
Yeah,
so many
for
opportunities. Sure. Well, just to wrap things up, what advice would you give to either the business owner who is about to liquidate the business, and this is somebody that does include charitable giving in their value system, or any of us as stewards in general, when it comes to just stewarding well the resources that God has entrusted to us? What would your advice be?
Oh, great question. The business owner, just be aware you're doing planning, but don't wait. Don't wait until you think you're ready to retire, ready to do something, because the heart attack can come at any time. So you need to be planned well before then. But for anybody, you don't have to have a lot to give a lot, percentage-wise, and make a lot of difference. But just to put it on your radar, to I would say as early as age 50, to start. Well, let's look ahead over the next 5, 10, 20 years, whatever. Hopefully, we live a long time. Hopefully, we become more prosperous. What are some things that we can baby step our way into, and see if we like this or how that works, and just be open to the opportunities that are out there. It's tough because today's problems are today. Today's opportunity is today, but we need to be thinking about tomorrow and the opportunities there. And it's a fun thing to do, but it does take some time. You need to find some trusted advisors that can walk you through that. I had a number of cases where we had to get the clients to change their law firms because their attorney didn't like any of those kind of ideas.
Interesting.
Because he really didn't understand them, so he didn't want to use them. It's funny, I don't want to pick on the attorneys, but they tend to have a cookie-cutter approach that they take to a lot of these kind of things. Doctors tend to recommend the same drugs. They're comfortable with them, they're familiar with them, etc. And there's new drugs that come out all the time. Maybe they should be investigating. Same thing with new tools and new ideas on the planning scene. But to have an eye on the future while you're paddling the boat in the present, it's time well spent.
Yeah.
And obviously, if you're married, this is a team thing. It's not a me versus you. No, let's do this together. Because there will be differences. I know my wife and I, in our estate plan, we had a number of things we wrestled on. Not the who, but the how much. What percent? I think this one should be 10%. She thinks it should be 20%, and vice versa. And so we usually leg wrestle when that happens, and she wins. No, not really. No, you just talk your way through it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Same thing with kids. A lot of people sadly have children that have wandered away in one way or another, and they're not tight with the family. And one of the parents still wants to benefit them, and the other parent says, well, a little bit, but we don't want to cause them more problems by giving them a bunch of money if they have a drug problem or whatever it might be, So do the team.
Yeah. Good advice.
Oh, I got lots of advice.
Oh, and that's great. That's great.
For free, anytime.
Yes, wonderful. I like what you said about the why. One of the most important questions we can ask ourselves is, why has God given me what he has given me? Why has he entrusted into my hands or our hands what he has?
Yeah.
And if it's come from God and belongs to God, then it's only right that we should ask God, the owner, what would you like me to do? How can I honor you with what you've entrusted
Absolutely.
to my hands?
Yep.
That's great. Well, thank you so much, Mark, for being here today.
It was fun.
Very
Thank you for
insightful.
inviting me.
Enjoyed your story and your insights and your counsel. Thank you very much.
Keep up the good work.
Thanks.
You bet.